Hey everyone, welcome back to Wonderland Wednesday. Today we're going to be talking about an Italian version. I think it was called Nel Mondo Di Alice. It's going to be in two parts because this is a mini-series. It was 4 episodes, and today we're going to be talking about the first 2 episodes because they cover Alice in Wonderland.
We're a little bit handicapped on this one because we had no subtitles. I do not speak Italian, but it's another weird cultural thing that we're doing for you, and if you're homesick for Italy, this might be the perfect version. Or if you want to see what the 70s looked like in Italy, this is also your version, if you have a 70s thing. Tambourines included. Another thing about this version is it probably has the longest beginning to any of these versions.
That's true. Every episode starts with like a 2.5 minute credits song crayon drawing thing,
which probably cut into the budget because it was very artistic. They had this
and kind of catchy too. I actually liked it. I was surprised that I liked it as much as I did.
It's very 70s. I'm assuming that they specially wrote it for this program, and they have all of the illustrations, and it's almost like they're telling the whole story in that form before you even watch the film. Okay, when it starts, it's a natural setting, and then there's the switch to a staged setting when the rabbit comes along, which is sort of a tacky puppet. I found it slightly odd because her sister's a blonde and she's a brunette, and they just decided to go with that. Her hair looks 70s. Her dress looks like something that they found in a shop somewhere and thought, oh, this'll work. This was a little bit slow, probably partly because we had no translation. When she goes down the rabbit hole, Jonathan's like, she's totally not lying on a black thing, because she's basically just sort of slowly wriggling as these objects are going by, and I got tired of it probably pretty quickly.
And I think they were using all of the dialogue from that scene because it just took forever. The book has a lot of dialogue as she's falling, and I don't think they cut any of it because this scene took so long.
I don't know how it would compare to the 80s BBC, but that one was more interesting, even though it did take forever. I adored the Drink Me bottle. It was tiny with a little bitty cork on top. It was so cute.
She was very excited by that bottle. Very excited.
It was a tiny cute thing. I don't know. Anyway, I want it. The Pool of Tears wasn't done well because she didn't cry out enough, and then
it was a small puddle that apparently dissolved the floor underneath because she fell right through the floor.
And the rat didn't really look like a rat. You could tell that they were doing the dialogue where she's saying French, and they were making it work. But
the rat looked like it would be right at home in some sort of a strange science fiction movie about adorable alien creatures, because it did not look like a rat, but it was kind of cute in a weird way.
They make it out to where off the shore, where the dodo bird and these other creatures are. He kind of liked the owl puppet.
That was probably the best one. The rest of the puppets were weird.
It's one of those things where it's okay, but no dialogue. It took forever to get through this scene. And at some point, I'm assuming this was the caucus race, because all of a sudden you had electric guitar going.
Not like heavy metal electric guitar, but like 70s electric guitar. It was very strange.
It's where the decade interjected into the story, and they're running around.
It's just a weird scene.
You're just going to have that unless somebody's really trying to be true to it, as I might expect from BBC. But if you think back to the 30s, there's so much 30s flavor that gets layered into there. And in the 50s French version, there really is strong 50s influence.
Mm-hmm. After that, they ended up at the rabbit's house.
You do have the scene where the rabbit comes along, and I'm assuming mistakes her for Mary Ann. The rabbit's house was the part where you really notice the budgetary restraint, because you basically have dialogue outside of the house and you have her
looking through the window. You're looking at the back of her head for most of the scene. Well, something is happening outside. We know what it is because we've read the book, but...
Right. She boots Bill the lizard out of the chimney, but
which
you
never see.
You never see. And they throw in pebbles, which turn into some sort of little round treat. And it was memorable in the sense that it was so monetarily restrained.
Yes. But after that, you get the caterpillar, and that you could tell they put a little more thought into, a little more money into, because I actually thought it was kind of clever how they did his costume. They built the back half of the caterpillar on top of the mushroom and then had him in a costume that was attached to the back half so that it looked like he was a caterpillar sitting on a mushroom.
Bonus, he not only smokes, he plays the guitar.
Yes,
and
another interesting choice of the 70s decade.
I don't know. Maybe it was the Italian sensibility, and she ends up dancing around. There's more dancing in this version than you would expect out of an Alice. At some point, she takes the mushroom and grows, and then she looks like she's next to...
It looks like a gravestone.
Well, it looks kind of like a fancy house in town, and...
But also a gravestone.
Yeah, and she eats some more mushroom, shrinks down, and it is the Duchess scene. The baby is obviously a puppet that's being shaken all over the place. The cook is probably the best-looking cook that we've ever seen.
The Duchess is also the best-looking Duchess.
Yeah, she's a beautiful lady that they just did up in heavy makeup, and they didn't try to make her ugly.
Yeah, usually we're used to the Duchess being like a really not hideous character, but very unattractive.
A caricature at best, really ugly at worst.
The cat in this scene was not one of the best Cheshire cats.
And then they have strange 70s sound effects that go with the cat. The baby, just note that whoever has the baby, whether it's Alice or the Duchess, this is not how you hold a baby.
I think one time they had it by its neck.
She did! Alice, when she was going to put it down on the ground, and she looked all happy. So, yeah, wasn't thinking that through. And, of course, you have the scene with the Cheshire Cat, and like I say, the weird 70s sound effects as he's fading, and when they got down to just his mouth, that looked weird, and Disney it was not, so... She just comes in sight of the March Hare's house, and they cut off the first episode. And the next episode covers the rest of Alice in Wonderland. And when you come back in, they sort of restart from that point where she's at the house. Mm-hmm. The tea party can take a long time, and it did. This is not the first version that has taken a long time.
There were some things I liked about it. But the main thing that I did not like about it was the dormouse, because it looked disgusting. Kind
of a gross puppet. And for some reason, the March Hare seemed to be female.
Yeah.
Which I can't decide whether I care.
It wasn't that big of a deal for the scene. It didn't make a huge difference story-wise, so the only thing that really bothered me a lot was the dormouse.
The dormouse sounded kind of like one of the sleepy mice from Speedy Gonzales, sort of sleepy sounding, that cartoon.
Except it was disturbing. It looked like, I don't know, some sort of horrifying alien. And at one point, the Mad Hatter feeds it something, and you can see that it has a gaping hole where its throat is, and for some reason that just adds to the disgust factor for me.
I don't know if I didn't even retain that, so...
Like, why did they need to put in a gaping throat hole? It was just disturbing. I hated it.
He was way more... I was more focused, I think... Okay, the dormouse was kind of gross. But the Mad Hatter was an interesting character.
I thought he was fine. He was the best part of the scene.
Probably, yeah. He gets my vote for best singer for a Mad Hatter Tea Party. He actually sounded kind of operatic. He had a vibrato going. He was putting his little heart into it, and I think that's one of the parts where the Italian thing really shined through, because you don't get that on any of the other versions.
Mm-hmm.
So that was fun. I liked that. And really, and another thing that I didn't care for about the scene is when she is leaving, she thinks the whole thing is dumb, and the Mad Hatter is stuffing the dormouse into a teapot. It looks kind of slow and maybe psychotic. Which I know is supposed to be crazy.
Plus the puppet is getting crunched. So.
But it wasn't fun like the one version, like, oh, we're stuffing you in the teapot. It was just like, we are now submerging you in the teapot. I don't know. It was just kind of weird and wrong looking.
Yeah. Everything that had to do with the dormouse was weird and wrong looking.
And at this point, she does get into the beautiful garden. And this is where it gets
weird.
Okay, it was weird before this because it's Alice mixed with Italy in the 70s. Things that I would not experience if I wasn't in on this. They had this really drawn out interpretive dance.
Yeah.
There was this,
that's the only way it can be described as an interpretive dance.
It looks kind of like a crayon background with this butterfly lady to match who is dancing around, and that's it.
It's not from the book at all. It was just weird.
We felt like they were trying to fill time. Like, this is supposed to be entertaining, but you're wondering what? And how long? And why? At some point it ends and we switch over to the cards painting the roses, which was also an interesting design choice.
Every card suit was like a different type of person.
It really varied because you had people with long wigs, you had people with long beards. With them, they looked like they had quilts on their backs, which I suppose was supposed to denote just a decorative card.
Mm-hmm.
But they had them on swings, and they were not panicking over the roses. They were
just sort of wiping at them with their paintbrush as they went by, and they weren't even hitting them most of the time.
This is another area where it starts to feel like they're just filling time, because the cards start marching in, which is perfectly acceptable. But then it's like you have this type of card marching in, and this type of card, and they have their own little weird step that they're doing, and then it's like they all have to have their own little interpretive dance sequence or something. You had cards that were the 80s rocker look mixed with medieval card person, and then, okay, the bearded ones made me think of a traditional Jew mixed with a card made into a ghost.
Also, with a bit of lumberjack thrown in.
They gave them this ghostly white paint, and they didn't take it all the way around their heads. So when you see the back of them, they have the normal flesh-colored necks, which in a sense was maybe slightly refreshing to see the normal part of their body. The Queen?
The Queen is what the Duchess should have been. She was just hideous and loud and annoying.
I think this may be where the Italian comes out a little bit more because of the way she expressed her anger. Now I'm going to get some Italians upset. Like, no, they totally made this up.
She growled a lot.
Yeah, just in her fake distress.
Yeah.
It was very fake. And then they have the garish white with the natural color of her teeth, which teeth are not, unless you bleach them, they're not naturally pearl white. So when you put them up against that garish white paint, it made them look yellow. So she's going around all angry with these yellow looking teeth, and they did a good job conveying that she was not a pleasant character. what we thought that they maybe did was combine the quadrille with the croquet scene, because they really didn't have the croquet. They did have the scene where she's talking with the Duchess, and you hear an Italian word that sounds like moral, like she's going through, and the moral of that is only in Italian.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't end up with them going off to see the Griffin and Mock Turtle. It just transitions right into the courtroom scene.
They have the cook come in, and they have the puppets as the jury. They have Alice sort of squeezing out the dormouse as she's growing bigger, and they have the confrontation with her. And instead of the cards flying at her, she gleefully picks up a bunch of cards and tosses them.
And that happened right after I said that I was getting sick of this scene and I wanted her to lay waste to the courtroom. And then she kind of did.
One of the things that was wrong about this version is that there were times where she looked kind of vapid, where she's just sort of staring and smiling instead of being properly engaged with the scene. Where with the courtroom scene, I guess it's sort of okay. Her expression was sort of okay, but there should have maybe been a little bit of, if there's going to be glee, maybe mix it with anger, because she's supposed to be upset in that scene. She wasn't. She was just like tossing the cards. And then she wakes up on the bank. The end. Have we mentioned that each episode is about an hour long?
Yeah, this is basically 2 full-length movies, because what we're talking about is the first 2 episodes, and the next 2 episodes are Through the Looking Glass. So you're basically getting 2 full-length movies in 4 episodes.
So you start to see a little bit more how you could have parts where it just looks like they're filling time.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's all we have for the first 2 episodes. I guess now we're going to go over to her house and watch the other 2. Yeah, that'll be next time, so we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.